Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching Lost, Season 1, Episode 17.
In translation.
An episode that is bafflingly called In Translation and not starting over.
Oh, fair. Or back to the beginning. Or,
all three plot threads in this are about starting over.
Yeah. What can you do?
I think that this is a largely good episode. Mm-hmm. It's a Sun and Jen episode. It's actually Jen's episode. Yeah. It's the paramour to Suns that we got earlier
House
on.
of the Rising Sun, which is also a fun name.
Oh, I just remembered what?
That one's an actual good name for an episode. Also, the overall punny, like, someone patting themselves on the back quality for thinking up the name of this episode, because it is ... in translation. So it's like, I hate it.
I kind of love it. I was giving our recaps funny names, and then I realized that I kind of just forgot. I just sort of trailed off.
They actually did that at the beginning of My Favorite Murder. They were like all puns on the number episode it was, but they got to like 50 and Georgia was like, I can't do it anymore.
But yeah, so it's sort of like the companion to Sun's episode, so much so that we get the other half of scenes. Which
I kind of love, and I actually think that, because I can't remember for sure, but I want to say that continues in a couple of their other episodes. And I like that, because I think that's part of why their relationship resonates from the series.
Well, it's one of the more avant-garde things that the show does, and one of the ones that works. I don't know if it's because Sun and Jen, I don't know if it's Daniel Dae Kim and Yeonjun Kim. I don't know if they're well written or well acted or compelling, but their stuff works.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a couple of things, and I'm going to juxtapose it at the end of this to the Shannon stuff. I think it works largely because they have dynamite chemistry. And then in addition to that, I believe they were heavily involved in creating their characters, which we discussed before.
We did talk about that.
And I think that makes a huge difference, because in letting them have creative control over their characters,
certainly input.
Certainly input. It feels more realistic, and it doesn't feel offensive, and there is a depth to the characters, because you feel that in some broad way they relate very deeply to their characters. Not in like, her dad's in the mob kind of shit, but I much prefer that than whatever the fuck happened with Shannon in this episode. And for better and worse, Maggie Grace is putting her whole chest into it. She's trying so hard.
She really is. And I think they themselves are also compelling on paper and in execution. The shot of them at the end of the episode sort of intertwined is so beautiful.
That's the thing too, is because the things they have in common are that Naveen Andrews and Maggie Grace also have dynamite chemistry. It's different, but it's also really good chemistry. I like the way their characters play off each other. I like that it's sort of an odd couple-y kind of thing. And that stuff's all great. And even then, her thing at the end is fantastic. But that shit in the middle, first of all, both of them are totally playing their hand completely open. The fact that not everybody on this island knows they fucked each other, her and Boone, is beyond me. Because they are not being, especially Boone. When Boone is talking to Saeed, when he's like, because Saeed is like trying to do the stand-up thing, and he's like, I know you don't want me to be around her, but like, I'm just hoping to like let you be cool with it.
But Boone is like, what is this, some kind of Middle Eastern thing? And I'm like, no, you very clearly
told him to stay
have
away.
An issue with this. So I'm attempting to get out in front of it. I'm attempting to make my intentions clear.
Yeah. And then he goes on this absolutely unhinged in content. His tone is very calm, but the content of this rant is unhinged, because he's like,
let me tell you about my sister. She'll make you feel like the greatest guy ever while you get her food, whatever it is she needs. And when she gets what she wants, she'll move on. When she does, don't take it personally, man.
I'm like, Boone, Boone, you're shining a light on yourself that says, I fucked my sister. Stop doing that. Like, because they both feel a great shame for different reasons about it. But, like, his shame is that he wants to do it again and he's still in love with her. And her shame is that she manipulated him cruelly and feels bad about it and wishes she never had sex with him. And it's just like...
But that is so... We don't explore her shame.
No. Which is unfortunate.
At all.
Yeah.
Our only touch point into her thus far is him, is as an extension of him.
Which is why I said that Maggie Grace is acting her tits off. Because she's trying so hard, and the only reason that I can identify that is where her shame lies is from her scene in their previous episode, where she's just like sitting as far away in the hotel room from him as she possibly can with all of her clothes back on, and she just is like, get dressed, we're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean... And I feel like that's too much heavy lifting for me as a viewer to have to do in something that should be clear. Because it
registers as villainous.
And I think partially she was trying to manipulate him, but then the fact you're totally right. We just should have focused on her portion of the shame more because it's important. And I don't know why. I've said it before that it's like there's only men involved in creating this show, but I feel a little disingenuous saying that every time because there are other strong and interesting female characters on this show. We haven't even met all of them yet, but like Kate, Claire, Sun, they're all different and they're all interesting and they're all strong in different ways. And I just don't know how they biffed it so hard with Shannon. It just simply doesn't make any sense. She's such a more rich character than...
She has the potential
to be such a richer character than she got to be. And it like chaps my ass harder now than it did then.
In many ways, so I think the character I wasn't gonna go all in. No,
I'm going all in.
No, that's fine. And
I had a feeling that I was gonna do this when we started this rewatch in the first place, because I also remember, you know, being really disappointed with like the trajectory of Shannon's story and wondering like, because I've always liked Maggie Grace. She is a serviceable actress. She's not like incredible, but she's great. And I just always was like, she's there giving it her all. And like, how are you so blinded to the potential of her relationships?
I have 3 talking points. I think the first one is she's in between eras. In a large way, I think her character is left over from a bygone era of Mean Girls.
Yeah.
But
there could have been a pivot.
And she's ahead of her time, because if it were being written now, I think that the writers would have caught up
Lydia
to
Martin.
Where the actors are.
Okay.
So it's like she's, I think to most people who aren't, and I don't blame the average audience, the average viewer, for not digging this deep with this essentially throwaway character, but it makes for an incongruous viewing experience, because again, her scenes with Naveen Andrews and to a lesser extent Terry O'Quinn are interesting, but we don't like her based on what they've given us so far, and it's just so much easier to be like, this doesn't gel, I don't like it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Versus...
Because also, they have not allowed her to have another scene with Boone.
And my second point, she doesn't, considering the ensembleness of this show, how many characters...
Elvira's going down.
How many characters has she interacted with?
3.
That's...
insane.
It's inexcusable. And I mentioned too...
Although, I'll be frank, I mean, Kate has really only Jack Sawyer, Locke, and a little bit of Sun. Claire is like 99% Charlie, and then 1% doctor's appointments with Jack. I mean, all of them are not interacting as much as they should.
Okay, that's a fair point. I think that they're really limiting her in a way that I I think that she and Claire would have been friends.
I agree.
I think that there's and this is even going with the mean girl route, but I think Claire has sort of a quality where she would be, I think they would gravitate towards each other in a superfluous, the desire to have a little bit of fun and be in denial about the direness of their situation.
Sure. Yeah.
I think she would be paired with Walt because she's, what is she, 19 or 20?
Yeah.
And not that he's a peer, but she was an au pair. So there is a story built reason for why she would be a caretaker. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I'm so furious.
And furthermore, and that would also humanize her if she felt an affinity for taking care of the kid or helping him, even if it was sort of put upon at first. And I think it's very telling because then she could have also helped take care of the baby once the baby's born. In the behind the scenes stuff, her audition footage is a scene with Walt that if it either doesn't happen or we haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which is also, I think I might have already said this, but it is in behind the scenes features, that her character was born from a place of quite literally 2000s pop culture. They literally said they were inspired to create a Paris Hilton type. And the moral of Paris Hilton's story hasn't even begun to crest at this point. Sure. You know what I mean? So I think partially in their, I understand the idea to ride the wave of something that was happening culturally. Yeah. But if it's not something that you respect or are compelled by, you're not going to do a good job.
Then I'm back to I'm back to these men.
Well, but that's why it's the other women that are written well, they have respect or admiration for.
Boo. Yeah.
So
you're
versus finding a way.
Yeah.
To and they do it. I think they do a decent job with a lot of these characters. Maybe she's a bridge too far, and that happens when you have a sprawling ensemble this way. But it's just the thing that I'm the most annoyed by, and why I don't mind that we went so long on this time. We've done it a lot, but is because the scene where Saeed, we see them being cute together, and also she's just happy in this way that we don't see her.
I tied this side down. Do you think this is gonna hold?
Do you have a past in the Navy you've neglected to tell me about?
Why?
Well, how does a woman like you learn how to tie a perfect bowline knot?
By dating guys with sailboats?
And I think that's what you mean when you're like Maggie Grace is really like giving it. But we go from seeing that to then Saeed talking to Boone and then Saeed dumping her. Out of character for Saeed based on that interaction.
Super out of character for Saeed, especially because we know how deeply another woman affected him. That why is he taking the word of this man-child as gospel as opposed to what the woman is telling him to his face? I mean, I'm sure part of it is that he doesn't want to be made a fool of, which I can understand, if she is just playing him. But worst case scenario, she's playing you to get help to put up her tent. Oh no!
But we already explored that with the Charlie bit, where she had Charlie catch a fish for her, and it's and I just with the way that Saeed dumps her, it's so abrupt, and also because she's just oh, we're at this oh, you're done with me, and I'm like, she wouldn't have clued in yet that happened.
It's so poorly written.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting to, is I was sort of like, God, and you were like, there's no subtext. They're just stating the plot at each other through dialogue. And I do like her.
It's literally like that the Britannic Academy Award winning or Academy Award nominated film where it's just passionate plea, whispered repetition.
Passionate plea,
whispered repetition. It's exactly what it is. Because
I do like her scene with Locke, and Locke is, if you've been following us, that he's a hit or miss character. Yeah. But I like this notion that even given Locke's relationship with Boone, that he's not there to protect his bro Boone. Yeah. He's my
sweet bro Boone. Scream queens.
All right, if you pick truth, you have to tell the truth. If you pick dare, it's gonna be really suspicious, and I'm gonna think you had something to do with my sweet bro Boone dying, and my rad bro Caulfield getting his arms, and then his head chopped off.
I was like, why did that come too easily? It's going on the list.
Yeah.
That's we bro Boone. But it shows that Locke clearly is sort of like, there's another side to this story.
Well,
so.
and he very obviously knows also that they've boned down, so it's like...
Boone, where is he?
Don't know.
Just tell him to stay the hell out of my business.
You like him,
What?
Saeed?
I just like, but I do, you're totally right, I do love their scene together, and that he basically is like...
You're a grown woman. Sure, you can yell at Boone till you're blue in the face, but all you're doing is giving him what he wants.
Yeah, what's that?
Your attention. Everyone gets a new life on this island, Shannon. Maybe it's time you start yours.
Because you also get the sense that no one has literally ever
said
talked
that
to her that way.
Yeah.
Ever.
He also, like, this is one of the moments where I think his fanaticism about the island actually makes sense, because he's like, everyone's entitled to a new life here. You don't have to be living the way that you were before. You can start over completely.
You could be your best.
You can be your best self if you want to be, as he says, as he becomes his worst self.
No, but I remember when we were watching it, there is a certain appeal to, we were sort of like, oh, I mean.
Well, I like that part of
all
it.
the terrible things that could happen. Being stranded on an island this way isn't at the top of my, bottom of my list. Whatever.
I'm desperate to go back to an agrarian society. Like,
yeah.
So back to the Jin and Sun episode.
Back to the plot. It was Jin's sort of descent into mob madness with her father. Mm-hmm. And it was doing,
So okay, here's the thing though. I feel bad for Jin the first time, because her father is like, go deliver this message, and then gives him a verbal message to deliver to this man. And then he's like, he essentially is like, why didn't you murder him like I asked? And I'm like, why do you think Jin knows that that's what you do? He thinks you own a company, like just a regular company.
I mean, I think... You think he's that naive?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. His whole speech, too, about why do you deserve my daughter? And he's like, because she is my dream. He is a naive sucker from a fishing village.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's important because it further shows the ruthlessness that Jin is capable of.
Which I do love that part.
But while also showing a moral compass.
100%.
Because he did not.
He still refuses to kill the man, but he does deliver him. He beats him pretty bad.
But is also like, so the other guy doesn't
kill him.
내일 바로 공장 문 열어. 내가 당신 목숨을 구했다는 걸 명심해. 이 정도면 알아들으겠죠.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's very necessary, especially.
And the fact, I think it's also, I don't like what he's doing in the present day, because he is being very misogynistic and very like anti-feminist.
That's what I was literally about to be like, we need that given.
But the fact that he was and continues to do all of this stuff for Sun, I think is really also humanizing to his character, especially after he literally drags her to the ground at the beginning because she's wearing a bikini.
So she,
he yanked her and she fell. I understand.
Fell.
I can appreciate the nuance of the situation. I am media literate.
Well, Michael can't. So
Michael cannot. And at least he recognizes it later, because he's like, nope, I stuck my nose in where it didn't belong. It's my bad. Don't worry about it. Because she slaps him across the face.
we didn't like Michael the first time. I was curious how I was going to feel going back. And
I'm still mixed.
I don't love him. I'm mixed. But I am seeing some different things.
It's very season 1 Joyce Byers. He just, my boy, I have to get my boy off this island.
Well, it's also, he's very, not pro, like he's very trigger, like
Trigger happy?
Yeah, he just charges into these situations.
Hair trigger.
There you go. And it's like there's a scene, they spend so much time fighting. It just, Saeed was really poorly written in this episode.
They spend so much,
because he's pro them fighting at one point, and
because he has the audacity to say this is between them, and I'm like, it literally can't be.
It's one-sided
because they don't understand each other.
Michael!
Hey, easy, Doc. One fight at a time.
He's right. This is between them.
And every time Jin says something in Korean, Michael assumes it is a slight on his mother and punches him in the face again.
There's just this one cutaway shot of Charlie like this and Kate's like this.
It's ridiculous.
And it's just sort of, I'm gonna drag it out across the entire episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very frustrating. I think Yunjin really rallies and holds the bulk of this episode together.
She is super fantastic. Like really, really one of the hearts of this entire series. And I do love that. And because we also get her essentially confessing that she speaks English, because she has to be like, he did not burn your, because the Michael's building a raft.
Let me back up.
And it gets burned down, and he immediately wrongly assumes that it was Jin. And so
which is one of those things that, like, at first glance, like in the most superficial way, it seems like that Jen would have done it. But then later when Locke is like, why the hell would this is a good Locke episode, honestly. I'm like the last week and this week, I'm like, but yeah, he's like, no, why would he sabotage all his own, all of our chance to get off this island for that? Because I was thinking, I couldn't remember. I was thinking it was Locke that had done it.
I thought so too.
But even that was feeling Machiavellian in a way that,
and it was like a little too much someone shit on the coats in that moment. But he did go into the, like, it would have made sense if it was him, because he was like, we don't need to be trying to go out there. We need to worry about what's on the island. And so it makes sense that you would think it was him, especially because, do we know yet about the other things he's done? We don't. No, not yet.
Well, we know he's the one that sabotaged their first. They were like trying to triangulate. They said that a couple times. And he hit someone in the head.
Right.
And if we don't know that, that's what happened.
Spoiler.
And that was nice for someone to remember the existential terror of the situation that they're in. There was something else that made me laugh in this episode about the island. I don't remember what it was. But if I remember in editing, I'll add it right here. We
did neglect to mention in the previous episode that Sawyer had heard the whispers, and he asked Saeed about it, and then he lied. He lied a couple of times. He didn't lie. He didn't continue telling the truth. But that was...
I do think it is interesting that Sun and Jin were in a bit of a gift of the Magi situation. Where she was going to leave him and decided to stay.
Yeah.
And he was going to stay and decided to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they landed on this island.
Yeah.
And...
I like that quite a lot as well. And also...
Well, he needs it.
He needs it for sure. And I do love...
To stay in the audience's good graces.
Oh, 100%. And I do also love that even though he can't understand her because she delivers her, like, passionate speech in English.
I was going to leave you. I was going to get away. But you made me change my mind. You made me think that you still loved me. 여보, 우리 새롭게 시작해요.
She's like, I was gonna leave you, and because he brought the flower up, and there's a callback to that in this, just like there was in House of the Rising Sun. I think the fact that he like pulled that flower out and it just reminds her, their relationship is like one of the better ones on the show. And I think it maybe is because it predates the island, where like a lot of the other relationships form on the island. I don't know. I dig it. I dig them together so much. And you're totally right about the kind of gift of the Magi situation where she was like, well, but then he is super duper pissed at the end and he leaves her in the caves and goes back to the beach. Yeah.
We can't have too much. can have one nice thing.
As a treat.
And then it turns out that Walt is the one who did it, who burned the boat. Because,
and somehow Locke knows that.
Like I said, surface level, Jen did it.
Mm-hmm.
You only have to go down 2 or 3 levels. And I think Locke was...
And he
like I said, Locke was in rare form this episode.
Yeah.
This was a good...
And Walt's reasoning is basically just that he doesn't want to move anymore.
And it kind of makes sense. And also, speaking, going back to what I was saying about Michael's character, there's an actually wonderful, beautiful moment where he's like freaking out about the boat. And then he feels the eyes of his son watching him. And he nuts the fuck up and does the actual father thing where he's like... He
apologizes for, like, being angry and yelling. And I think that wrapped up in that apology is also supposed to be for, like, hitting Jin.
Shannon! God! I'm sorry, man.
It's okay.
No. Come here. We all have setbacks. I mean, God knows, man. It's just life. We'll start over.
You're gonna build another one?
Yeah, a better one.
Can I help?
No doubt you can help. Come on.
Because there is a shot of Walt where he is like sort of shocked at what's happening during the fight, where you can sort of feel the regret. And he's like, oh, God. And so I think there's a lot wrapped up in that apology, but it works really well. And I think, obviously, we love Harold Perrineau from multiple things, which we've mentioned before. It's just that I don't think Michael is very well written. And so he, again, acting his tits clean off, but he can only do so much. But you're totally right, just because there's so much toxic masculinity in this episode. And then to have that moment of, like, actually positive masculinity for him to be like,
well, it's the whole thing that like people think Avatar too, James Cameron, people think that like fatherhood is being the most tough to save your family.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the situation calls for it, sure, I guess that's a factor, but it's like fatherhood is leading. It's providing, it's teaching, it's nurturing. And the fact that he does that, and the whole, I mean, because you have to realize how traumatizing this is for Walt 7 ways over.
Of course, yes.
And to have his father show up, but also to show up in that moment is so...
Because the other thing, which we didn't discuss, is that, like, Walt is not a stupid kid. And even though Michael didn't tell him that Brian didn't want him, Walt is not a stupid kid. He has to know that somewhere inside him, that his stepdad didn't want him, his mom is dead, they stole a dog from his stepdad, and now they're trapped on this island. But
with people stealing pregnant ladies! Nobody is upset enough about that.
Nobody's upset enough about that. And then I just fully am sort of there for Walt being like, this is as okay as anything that's been happening to me. May as well stick it out.
I mean, there's probably not people stealing pregnant ladies in the middle of the ocean, but there's sharks and no water and dying, so...
I mean...
I don't know, it was pinging my Moana vibes, that boat. I was like, Michael did a good job.
Not bad. It was not bad. Not bad at all.
We did get Sun's iconic bathing suit shot in this. The end montage, the Shannon and Saeed Sun...
they're just like sharing a mango, and it's like so cute.
And Hurley, I really thought the CD player happened more.
I thought so too.
This is like the third or fourth time, and
I also thought it was like the episode before the 2-part finale.
It's like.
Son of a bitch.
It's really brilliant. It's really beautiful. And part of me wonders, I'm like, did we really need a joke here?
It's not so much a joke. He's legitimately bummed. Like
that's why it's funny. It's like it just shatters this sort of like
idyllic.
Yeah, and I mean it breaks the fourth wall in a rather masterful way. So turns out I guess we liked this episode. Well, we had a lot to say about this episode.
Well, we had a lot to say about Shannon in this Sun and Jen episode.
So, Okay, well, we're gonna watch the next one, and then we'll be back. Like and subscribe, and patron, and bye.
Bye.